What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1, and we continue with our 2025 predictions. The Indiana Hoosiers up next, of course, the team that went to the college football playoff last year. Surprised a lot of people, almost everyone, I think. Of course, Kurt Signetti coming in, brought a lot of transfers with him. Reason to believe that they could be, a much improved team last year, but doing what they did, again, that really surprised, I think, most people. So we go to 2025. What does it look like? Are they going to be able to repeat that? Will they drop off from where they were last year? Before we get into the predictions, let's just look back at my predictions from the last 3 years. I had them at 6-6 last year, which obviously they did way better than that. That was over the over-under. So, I thought this team would be improved, but again, nowhere near 11-1, nowhere near the college football playoff. In 22, 23, I had them 5-7, 4-8. They were 4-8, 3-9. So I was over one game there, but it was kind of expected for they were not going to be very good those 2 years, and they were not. But a quick turnaround last year, and totally different expectations. The program, it's totally different now. So we look to 2025. Here's the schedule, and before we go game by game, I'll just kind of give you my thoughts on this Indiana team. I do really like the transfers that they've added. I believe Mendoza is going to be play really well for them at quarterback. I like the running back room, like the wide receiver room. Offensive line, is that going to be able to match up with some of the elite defensive lines in the Big Ten? That's a question mark. I love the Indiana defensive line. I think they're going to be very good up front. You look at the back end, the linebackers, the secondary, some really talented players there. I do wonder a little bit about the depth. Could that possibly play a factor there? I don't think they're going to be as deep as a team like Ohio State or Penn State or Oregon. So that could be a slight concern. But overall, I think Indiana's right back in that playoff conversation. And I think this schedule sets up pretty well for them. I think it gives them a really good shot. And I don't want to give away the prediction right away. But when I look at the schedule, I think pretty much every game on this schedule, I feel very confident in who the winner is going to be, except for one team. I think there's one game that I am having a little bit of a hard time with. I really went back and forth. I will share that team at the end of the video if you can't figure it out when we go through them. So let's start with some of these games. It's going to be pretty quick going through this because I don't think they're going to be a whole lot of close games. I think it start off 3-0. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. They should roll in all three of those games. And you've got Illinois September 20th. Interesting game here. I think there's going to be a lot of hype around this game. Illinois comes in. A lot of people saying they're going to be the Indiana this year. They're going to make the college football playoff. It's not really the same, though, because Illinois was just 9-3 last year, so it wouldn't be like they're this year's Indiana. But I get it. There's a team that's not a powerhouse making the college football playoff. But I don't think this matchup really is all that close. When I look at Illinois, they got a good quarterback. Luke Altmaier's coming back. They got a good running back room. They got a good secondary. But if you look at their wide receivers and you look at where they are on the offensive and defensive lines, I think they're all right. I go ahead and say it right now. I don't know if I've said this in my other prediction videos, but if you've been following me, you know that I was very high on Illinois coming out of the spring and all that. I think I had them maybe even in the top 10. But the more I looked at this roster, and especially the line of scrimmage, I have totally flipped on Illinois. I think they're going to be one of the more overrated teams this season. And I think Indiana rolls in this game. Playing at home, I think they dominate. I don't think this game is going to be close at all. I think Indiana is better across the board, better at the line of scrimmage. This team, Indiana, will win, I think, this game by at least 2 touchdowns, maybe more than that. So I think they roll in that game. Next, you've got Iowa. Tough place to play on the road, coming off of a big win over Illinois. This is a tough one to predict. When I look at Iowa, I think they've made some strides on offense. We'll see if Mark Gronowski, how he fits in this offense. An experienced quarterback, I think an upgrade from what they've had the last few years. Wide receiver room looks a little bit better. I think the offense is headed in the right direction. I'm actually more concerned about the defense for Iowa. I think the defensive line will be strong, and that's gonna potentially be the difference in this game. If Indiana's offensive line cannot hold up against the Iowa defensive line, could be some problems for this Indiana offense to move the ball and score. So that's something to look at there. I do think, though, if you look at the back end of Iowa's defense, the linebackers, secondary, this is going to be one of the worst Iowa defenses that they've had in a long time. I really think they could struggle there. And I think Indiana's playmakers on offense they're going to be able to win those battles. And so for Iowa, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be because of their defensive line. They take advantage of an Indiana offensive line that maybe is not great, but I think Indiana just overall is the better team. I'm going to pick them to win this game, even on the road. I think Kirk Cinetti has them ready. They go in there, they pull off what maybe will be an upset. I'm not really sure what the spread will be for that game, but yeah, I think Indiana wins it, and they get off to a 5-0 start. They get a bye week, and then they play on the road at Oregon. Great spot for a bye week before traveling out west. This is an Oregon team that we know they're going to be very, very talented. We saw last year Indiana struggle a little bit against those more talented teams. You look at Ohio State, you look at the playoff game, even the Michigan game that they did win. Their offense really struggled. I think it was the second half they couldn't do much at all. So I think the line of scrimmage, that's where Oregon's going to be the better team. I think Oregon's just the more talented team. It's on the road. No real reason. I think Indiana, if these two teams played on a neutral field, I think Indiana would have a shot. But playing on the road, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Oregon wins this game, and Indiana drops to 5-1. Then they get Michigan State. I think this could be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. That should be an easy win for Indiana. Then you've got UCLA, October 25th. This could be a tricky game. I mean, UCLA is probably one of the tougher teams to predict this year. A lot of new faces, a second-year coach. I don't really know how good UCLA is going to be. I think they could definitely compete in this game, but at home, I think Indiana is definitely still the better team. No real reason to pick them to lose. So I've got Indiana beating UCLA. Then they got Maryland on the road November 1st. This one shouldn't be really that tough either. Maryland's going to be pretty bad. So I think that's a very nice stretch. Between Oregon and Penn State, you get Michigan State, UCLA, and Maryland. Indiana should absolutely win those 3 games. Then you've got Penn State November 8th. It's going to be kind of the same story as Oregon. A more talented team, a team that will be much better in the trenches. It's on the road, very tough place to play. Just don't see Indiana winning this game. So I think they lose that one. Then you get Wisconsin November 15th. This could be a pretty competitive game. I think Wisconsin is a team that people are overlooking a little bit. They're going to have a good secondary. They're going to have a good defense overall. So I think that defense could make this game pretty close. But I don't know if they're going to have the offense to actually pull off a win. Plus, the game is at Indiana. So, again, there's really no reason to pick Indiana to lose. I've got them beating Wisconsin. They close things out with Purdue after a bye week, kind of a weird bye week. If they make it to the Big Ten championship game, that bye week actually could come in handy, or could be a pretty good spot for that bye week. But, yeah, Purdue should be an easy win. Don't think this team's going to be very good. And you get to 10-2. So that's where I've got Indiana. So the question then becomes, if they are not all that competitive against Oregon and Penn State, let's say they lose both those games by 20 points, 14 to 20 points, somewhere in that range, but they win the rest of these games and they dominate against some of these teams like Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, maybe kind of a closer game against Iowa, but maybe even Wisconsin, but they take care of business, they win those games. What's the committee going to do in that scenario when we saw Indiana lose in a first round playoff game last year? If they can't compete with the elite teams, is the committee going to drop them? Perhaps even a 9-3 SEC team jumps ahead of Indiana. That is something to watch if it does play out this way. But if they're competitive against Oregon and Penn State, I see no way that Indiana would be left out of the playoff if they do go 10-2. So again, the team that I am having trouble with, if you couldn't figure it out, it's Iowa. That's the game. I think that's the swing game. If they win that game, I think they're going to make the playoff, or at least be 10-2 and have a shot. If they lose that game, I don't think they're going to get in. I do not see them beating Oregon or Penn State on the road. Oregon, I would give them a better chance because I think Penn State's just better than Oregon, and it's coming off of a bye week. So maybe they got a shot to upset Oregon there. I do not see them beating Penn State. I would be shocked if they beat Penn State. But I would be very surprised if they lost to any of these other teams other than Iowa. I just do not see them losing to Illinois, Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Wisconsin, or Purdue. So that's what I've said earlier. I think 11 of these games are very easy to predict. It's just the Iowa game. That's the one I had a hard time with. It was really back and forth. But at the end of the day, I do think Indiana is the better team. I think they overcome the home field advantage for Iowa. They find a way to win that game. But that's going to be it, in my opinion. That game's going to tell the story for the season. So if they can get past Illinois like I believe that they will, I think that is the game to watch. So I'd love to get your thoughts on Indiana, your predictions. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.